Good morning, PSW staff, clients, friends joining us for a Classical Tuesday. We like to kick it classical sometimes. We had a lot of fun looking at High Noon, your film scoring assignment, so the Gary Cooper film. So get that into me by today. We'll see your results for Friday. That'll be a lot of fun. You know, that climactic scene where they're Gary Cooper and then the gang are kind of meeting at noon, and you know, it's just going to be a lot of fun to take a look at it. Today we're going to talk about a composer that wrote some beautiful pieces that from the Romantic era. So we'll do a recap and look at our timeline, and we're just going to have a lot of fun and listen to some beautiful classical piano pieces. This will be a very melodic, tonal, fun day for us. So today we're going to be looking at the great work of Robert Schumann. Schumann was a German composer, pianist and a critic, and suffered, you know, had a tough life. So one of the greatest composers of the Romantic era, 19th century, right? We know about these things. We know about the Romantic era. Wrote a lot of music for piano, also orchestra, but mostly his piano pieces, personally my favorite. And also songs, Lieder, which is German. You know, we looked at Schubert. Schubert was a huge influence on him, along with other composers that we've talked about. Mendelssohn was a huge influence, but also wrote symphonies and orchestral music, and also was married to a pianist and composer in her own right, Clara Schumann. So we'll talk about their relationship a little bit. So Schumann today people think he might have been bipolar. He suffered from and probably died of syphilis, maybe something that he got in his teens. Had a tremendous amount of energy and emotions and ups and downs and things that were kind of sad, things that were, you know, doctors just didn't really realize back then. But I mean, throughout all that, he wrote some beautiful music, and that's something about the Romantic composers. They feel deeply, right? So they're very sensitive, they're very emotional, but and maybe some of those feelings of mania, of despair, those intense feelings, maybe they are not good, but maybe they help the artist in some way. I don't know. We'll never know. I'm just kind of philosophizing about that. So let's go over and let's see where he's born. Born in central Germany, pretty upper class family, in 1810. So 1810 we know, but let's see where 1810 is on our timeline. Born the same year as Chopin, one of the greatest composers that we looked at for piano mostly, right? I mean, his nocturnes, Chopin's a classic. Schumann wrote more than just piano pieces. Chopin mostly just wrote all piano pieces. But they're born the same year. Mendelssohn is born right around here. Schubert's a little bit earlier, but they're going to be influenced by it. So, I mean, he's right in the middle of, you know, Wagner's just going to be right around. So this is all 19th century, all Romantic composers. This is after the classical period, after Mozart and Beethoven, after the Baroque. But we're not yet into modernism, right? Into the 20th century. Not yet. That'll be the 20th century, and that'll be really exciting. So what's happening in the 19th century? I mean, a lot of stuff in Europe, but I mean, a lot of the American Revolution. I mean, you know, that's 1775 to 1783. So I mean, that's late 18th century. But America is still getting its bearings as a free country. You know, it takes a long time. I mean, we're still kind of relatively a new country. So, but you know, we see technology in the 19th century, locomotives, right? Photography and film, kind of late 19th century, sewing machines, dynamite, the telephone. These early inventions are happening. The early car, I mean, all these things. But when Schumann's born, these things have yet to really be invented. Für Elise, Beethoven's famous piece, comes out the year he's born, in 1810. So he starts writing music around 7. He writes at a really early age, but also as influenced, as we've talked about other composers that are influenced by by the arts and by other things, real intellectuals, right? When we always try to be a little bit intellectual because it's good to know about music, but also about poetry, about art, about all the other arts. So he was very academic, very interested in the arts, and a real intellectual, and that's also part of the Romantic era, right? They're influenced by their surroundings, and they're going to take in emotionally what they feel and express it through music. This is before, though, Debussy and Ravel. This is before Impressionism, where they're really going to get super romantic into Impressionism. So this is like an extension of classical music, only just with more romance. So he was bound to go study law. But he left law school, and he wanted to be a concert pianist, and that's what he wanted to do. But because of some of his limitations, he didn't. So thankfully, he was able to say, well, I'm going to spend more time on composing rather than being a piano player. We talked about some injuries with his hand, and again, this goes back to some of his mental illness and hyper kind of sensitivity to the world. Supposedly he kind of split his thumb so he could reach the keyboard further away. Again, it doesn't sound like a great idea, but who knows how desperate he could have been. And then, around here, this is Chopin and Liszt. We already did. I mean, those guys are virtuoso piano players. I'm sure Schumann was great, but that's going on as Schumann's going on. But he's saying, well, I think I'm writing maybe might be, better. So from 1832 to 1839, he wrote mostly all for piano. And in 1840, he wrote at least 138 songs. That's a lot. So lieder songs, so just like pop writers write songs for vocalists, keyboard and a singer. He would write a keyboard and a singer, and it just happened to be in German or different different language than our language. But I mean, they were somewhat popular songs. After 1840, I mean, he meets Clara Schumann. She's very influential, as they're deeply in love with each other. She was an inspiration and a critic of his music, and just they were so close. They had 8 children together. She performed a lot of his pieces, including after he died, and was a great pianist and composer in her own right. Something really crazy for 19th century, for a woman to be considered a brilliant, a legit pianist and composer. Some of her music is really wonderful. So during all this, he's just turmoil. I mean, he several suicide attempts. It's really sad because mental illness is definitely something that was not recognized in the 19th century. It's just barely kind of touched on now. I mean, more so now, but in the last few decades. But back then, you were just either normal or crazy, and it's silly. But people think he died maybe probably from syphilis, and maybe that was something, and that gets worse. You could get it when you're young, and it just gets worse each decade and each year. So he dies in 1856 in a kind of an asylum, really, which is really unfortunate. So some of the music we're going to look at that I love, that he has to do with kids. He was a great father, something that was atypical too for a 19th century man to be sensitive, to be caring with his kids. That wasn't really that normal, but he loved his kids, and he loved playing games with them and reading to them. And childhood was something that meant a lot to him. And he wrote, when he was about 28, he starts writing Kinderscenes, scenes from childhood. These are really beautiful little pieces. They're mostly just not more than a page long. We're going to take a look at two in particular. At first they were 30. He wrote 30 and then kind of condensed them into 13 pieces. They're just so beautiful and full of hope and passion. So he said that these scenes from childhood are reflections of childhood for adults. So rather than music for kids, it's more of a reflection of how we were all kids at one point. And that's kind of something interesting that I kind of thought, yeah, I like that. I like that it's not music for kids, it's a reflection of childhood, because we were all kids at some point. And he wanted to capture some of that reflection, some of that remembrance. So we'll see the influence of early popular music and early pop music in, I mean, let's just look at the first one of Foreign Lands and People. If we look at it, very simple, right? I mean, it's mostly just real, kind of rather simple chord progressions. There's a melody definitely in the right hand, but they're chord progressions, and it's, I mean, if we just look at that first chunk is just 8 bars, very quick. This, and then after that, there's a little bridge or a B section. That's 6 bars. And then what does he do? He just repeats the 8 bars from the beginning. That's ternary form. It's song form. That's ABA. A is the beginning, B is kind of the bridge, and then back to A. That's how simple this is. So when you're listening to it, it's kind of interesting to see, right, on the page, how it sounds maybe complicated when you're just listening to the piano playing it. But when that's why I like to visually show you guys. When you see it, it's complicated, but it's very basic. When you break it down, it's very basic. Just a lovely song. It does sound melancholy, sentimental. It does sound childlike, or from a memory of childhood, and that's what he wanted to do. The other most famous song is Chamare, Dreaming. And we listened to this song a year and a half ago or something like that. Listen to this. So again, 8 bars in the beginning, then there's 7 bars, the B section, and there's 8 bars to close it. Very simple structure. How beautiful is it though? Dreamlike, it is like dreaming, very childlike. There's something beautiful about childhood that we're so, as artists and people, we're so affected by our surroundings. So when you're a child, you don't even know how to really express your surroundings, but you feel things, and we all felt things. And perhaps some of that music that we felt, we don't understand, but it stayed with us throughout our lives. And he captured that sort of remembering and forgetting of things that happened in our childhood, things that we'll never understand. That's part of the beauty of living, and we can, just like these classes, I was thinking, we don't get to all the works, and we don't understand, but that's part of the beauty of it. My job is just to introduce you and maybe get you to fall in love or listen to some of this music, and to think and to reflect and to be better human beings and thinkers and feel things. Remember with Mahler, I made you guys listen to the Eighth Symphony to know that you're alive and feel, and to be affected by this beautiful, beautiful composer. Just amazing, Robert Schumann. And just wanted to share with you scenes from childhood. So hope you enjoyed that. And tomorrow it's going to be something different. So have a great rest of the day, and see you tomorrow. Bye.